positive. Economist Johannes Khosa joins us now for reaction to that reading. Good evening to you, and I think we should really start about explaining what the lower inflation rate means, especially for ordinary South Africans, because we need to ask whether it's too early to celebrate maybe the possibility of a rate cut soon.
Good evening to Misang and the viewers. Yeah, certainly it is quite a good number. I mean, the consensus forecast was for inflation to slow down to 4.9% from 5.1%, but we got the number coming out lower than expected at 4.6%. It's great news because, you know, we've seen a decline mainly coming from lower fuel prices, which reflects the impact of a slightly stronger rand-dollar exchange rate and subdued oil prices as a result of weaker global demand. But also we have seen like food inflation continue to moderate. I mean, we're expecting food at least to start picking up because the base has been diminishing. But at least for this month, we've seen food prices also continue to slow down.
Speaking of those contributing factors, Johannes, pardon me for interjecting there as you raise that very important point, because the high cost of living, which includes elevated food and transport in this country, have been the bane of many consumers' existence. And I'm interested in finding out whether it can be sustainable for a decrease to continue to be seen in overall inflation, particularly in inflation for food and transport.
Well, for food, we are expecting it to start picking up, as I mentioned earlier, that, you know, the base is diminishing. And again, if you recall, we had that dry weather conditions experienced earlier in the year. So we expect that impact to start filtering through into the numbers. But when it comes to the fuel prices, at least we expect fuel prices to remain low as long as the rand behaves. I mean, so far, the rand has been doing very well. For the year to date, has been one of the better performing currencies among the emerging market currencies. So if the rand continues to behave well and we don't see like a very big shocks coming from the oil supply, we are likely to see inflation continue to slow down. But our current view is that, you know, inflation will at least hit the Reserve Bank's target range in September. I mean, earlier we're expecting it to hit that target in October. So the hit will come in earlier than what we were expecting. So it's good news in the sense that, you know, we believe that it's going to encourage the Reserve Bank to start cutting interest rates, which we believe will be in September.
You touched on the performance of the local currency there as a positive contributor. My next question really is around whether, on the political side of the coin, is it because of the ease in which South Africa introduced a government of national unity that we are seeing this buoyed performance when it comes to the rand, but also a projection of improved economic as a climate?
Yes, definitely. I think the formation of government of unity helped a lot. I mean, we've also seen the bond yields falling significantly since the formation of the government of national unity. But again, the performance of the rand also reflects the weaker US dollar. So markets are also pricing in a beginning of a cut in the US interest rates, which is putting pressure on the dollar, and the rand is benefiting because of that. And certainly, you know, the economy is expected to pick up later in the year because of less disruptive load shedding, and because, you know, consumer spending is expected to pick up when interest rates start to fall. So those factors together, they are providing a better economic outlook for this year, of which the rand is benefiting from.
Lastly, we know that electricity and water as service costs have continued to hike in South Africa. How has this contributed to overall inflation?
Yes, it did contribute, but to a lesser extent. If you recall, last year, electricity prices increased by more than 18%, but this year we've seen an increase of around 12.1%. So definitely it contributed to the upside, but at a slower rate compared to what was experienced last year. So as usual, I mean, like administered prices is one of the it's one of the factors that we normally highlight as an upside risk to our inflation outlook. But that slower increase in electricity prices definitely has provided some relief.
Thank you so much for your input. Positivity all round. That's where we leave it with Nedbank economist Johannes Khosa there.